Hi, I'm Matthew Elia, the Assistant Airport Manager at the Mansfield Airport, and I'd like to welcome you to this edition of Aviation Adventures. I'm very lucky to be joined today by a friend of mine, Sean Collins, the Eastern Regional Manager for the Aircraft Owner and Pilot Association, or as we'll refer to it, AOPA. So Sean, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So, how are you today?
I'm well.
All right, well, that's good to hear. So Sean, how did you get involved in aviation?
Well, actually, it started when I was young through the FAA's ACE Camp, Aviation Career Education Camp. It's a program for kids of different ages, but at that time it was focused on middle-aged, 12 to 16, and it was a week-long camp, and up in Bangor, Maine, actually, and we got to fly every day.
Wow, that's pretty exciting. So after you did that as a teenager, where did you go from there?
Well, from there, I actually, my uncle got me a free flight lesson out of the Bar Harbor Airport, and while I was there, I was talking to the flight instructor who was asking me about what I was interested in doing, after college and whatnot. And at the time, I wanted to go to the Air Force Academy.
Okay.
But that following weekend, actually, my folks and I were going to look at colleges around New England.
Sure.
And he asked if I'd ever heard of Bridgewater State, and I hadn't. So he suggested I check it out, and sure enough, that's where I ended up.
Well, that's excellent, not just as a fellow classmate, but now teaching at Bridgewater. I think that's awesome. So we actually attended Bridgewater at a little bit of the same time frame. So
Sure.
What did you do after you graduated from Bridgewater? You were a commercial pilot, you had a commercial pilot certificate, and you were an aviation management major, so you had a degree in aviation management. So
Correct.
Where did that Massachusetts State University education take you?
Well, when I graduated, I was still working on my flight instructor certificate at the time. And it was just a case of, the college loans came due and I had to get a job, and I applied for AOPA and was fortunate that I got picked up in the Pilot Information Center as a pilot tech. So I've been there ever since.
Interesting. So what really got you interested about joining AOPA from an aspect of that organization instead of just needing to pay the college loans, which I certainly understand, and that is a big motivating factor for a lot of people. What
Sure.
really interested you about AOPA?
Well, I knew after I graduated I had a lot yet to learn about aviation, and kind of the three pillars that AOPA prides itself on is information, education, and safety. And I felt, what better way to learn those things than helping other pilots?
Well, that's excellent. And just to be clear, I've been a member of AOPA since I was 13 years old, so I really believe in what AOPA does.
Well, thank you.
I'm a proud member. So you went to work in the Pilot Information Center, and that's a pretty interesting opportunity, helping other pilots.
Sure.
What did you do after that? What do you do now for AOPA?
Well, actually, I worked as a pilot tech for about 2 years, and then got promoted to senior tech and did more or less the same job for 2 more years. And then I actually took a short break with AOPA, and I left and went to the FAA to become an air traffic controller. And after I decided that that was not the career for me, I actually went back to AOPA and managed the very department I would say I grew up in. And then last February, I was fortunate to get this opportunity as regional manager.
All right. Well, as the regional manager of AOPA, what exactly do you do on a day-to-day basis?
Well, apart from our volunteer program, think of the regional manager as your local AOPA person.
Okay.
So that's me, and we have 2 primary focus, which is member engagement. So I get to participate in fly-ins or events like this, and also state legislative is our focus, making sure that the state aviation industry stays strong.
Okay, and that's a great thing. In fact, we met at the Massachusetts Airport Management Association conference last fall, so you're certainly doing great work there. Just to jump away from AOPA for a second, back to your own personal flying experience,
Sure.
What would you say are a couple of your favorite flying experiences, some things that really affirmed your love for aviation that all pilots seem to have, including both of us?
Sure. Well, any seasoned pilot will probably tell you there's more than just one to be able to choose from, but it started with ACE Camp. In Bangor, we were very special in that we got to go for flights with the Maine Air Guard on KC-135 refueling aircraft, and I've been able to see F-16s refueled midair, as well as KC-10 Stratotankers and numerous other aircraft. And they also let us go up with the Maine Army Guard, and we flew Black Hawk helicopters. So those,
Wow.
At a young age, those are 2 pretty exciting opportunities that I was very thankful to have participated in. In my own flying, I actually took a trip to Sugarloaf Regional Airport in western Maine. And there's nothing there. It's just a paved strip with a couple of hangars. but the traffic pattern is actually around a mountain. So, I mean, that's pretty crazy.
So when you're landing at the airport, of course, the traffic pattern is the way you would approach and land. And typically, like at Mansfield Airport, most general aviation airports, really most airport anywhere, you're going to be able to have visual contact with the runway either on the left side or the right side or straight ahead, depending on how you're approaching. So having a mountain in the middle must have been a pretty interesting experience. That sounds pretty cool.
It was. I was fortunate at the time. I had a friend who is a pilot in the Maine Air Guard, and he was on board with me to make sure that we stayed safe. But it was a great time.
Excellent. So, you know, those sound like interesting experiences. While you were with AOPA, did you have any interesting flying experiences that you were able to take part of, being a member of it or a part of the AOPA team?
As a national association, we have to be all over the country, and there was this one event that stands out in particular where I had to take a simulator to Los Angeles, and we used our CJ to get there and to be able to sit in the cockpit with our CEO at the time, and be at 43,000 feet is pretty surreal. I mean, just start to see the curvature of the Earth and just cruising along. I mean, that's an experience I wish everybody could have at least once.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. So just to talk about the outreach that you do, and one of the things that that I certainly noticed and was impressed by, not just your commitment to MAMA, the Airport Management Association, but when we met to discuss having you here on Aviation Adventures, you actually flew up to visit me. You flew into the Mansfield Airport instead of driving. I think that just shows the utility of aviation. But to talk about that outreach that AOPA does, what do you do that might benefit even non-members of AOPA? For example, people in the town of Mansfield who don't use the airport as a resource and maybe aren't actively involved in aviation just yet, hopefully.
Well, I think most people that aren't in aviation don't realize that general aviation in particular is working for them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I mean, from law enforcement to natural disaster relief, medevac, pipeline patrol, I mean, even simple jobs. I know the pilots who count fish over Narragansett Bay, which has a big impact on the fishing industry there. And even the shark hunters that fly off the Cape doing science research with the OSearch group.
Sure.
There's general aviation works for everybody every day. And so in terms of what we do, we work to make sure that those industries stay strong in each state. So that's how we work for you.
That's excellent. So in terms of for the actual airports, because we're lucky in Mansfield to have such a great resource in our backyard, literally right down the street from this studio. So what do you do to help benefit the airports and keep those airports in the communities and a resource that the community can depend on having there?
Sure. Well, we actually have a system of volunteers known as the Airport Support Network. And we try to have a volunteer at every public use airport. And of the nearly 5,200 airports around the country, we have volunteers at over 2,500 of them, which is pretty significant. And the program is designed really as an early warning system to let us know of problems at the airport. We used to get calls, it'd be at 4 o'clock on a Thursday night, and a member would be saying, hey, I need help with the airport. There's going to be a vote to close the airport. Well, when's the vote? Tonight at 6. I mean, there's not a lot you can do in 2 hours. So we created the network to give us that advance notice, and that's what we do. We work with state and local entities to make sure that they understand the value of the airport.
Well, that's excellent, and I think that's a great effort that AOPA puts forward to help us as communities and as local airports keep the airports there and bring business to the airports that's going to benefit the local community, whether it be with jobs or commerce coming into the airport. So just to talk a little bit, kind of switching gears here, this year AOPA is going to roll out the regional fly-in events, which are new, and I think they offer quite an opportunity for aviation. Prior it was one national event, and now there are going to be a series of 6 regional events.
Correct.
So can you just tell me a little bit about what this event really is?
Sure, absolutely. Think of this event in terms of fun, friends, flying, and food. I mean, those are the the 4 Fs. And that's what we plan to bring. I mean, it's an opportunity for AOPA members to meet their AOPA staff, but it's also a chance for non-members, anybody interested in aviation, to come out, see aircraft, see pilots, and find out what it's all about and the fun that we have.
Well, that's excellent, and I'm certainly looking forward to it. As I said, we're going to have one in Plymouth in a Saturday in July.
Correct. Yep. July 12th.
July 12th, perfect. So it's not a very long flight from Mansfield, probably only 15 minutes. So driving time, it's certainly less than an hour. It's a very accessible place to the Plymouth Airport. And I think one of the things you mentioned is that it might be a good opportunity for people who aren't actively involved with aviation to
Correct.
really get out and experience it. So are there going to be things geared towards learning to fly or getting involved with aviation that might be of interest to people other than just AOPA members?
Absolutely. We'll have, well, like Learn to Fly booth there, information available. Even at the schools that are there at Plymouth, we'll have information available as well. So for anybody who's just interested in finding out more, come on down.
Well, that's excellent. And as I said, I'm certainly interested in that opportunity. And I want to say thank you for joining me here today. So
Matt, thank you for having me.
For coming in and telling us a little bit about what AOPA does for aviation and for the town of Mansfield and the Mansfield Airport. And with that, we would just say thank you. And thank you for joining us for this edition of Aviation Adventures. And we'll see you next time.